Her body's gold like September. She burns through the night like an ember. And all those things we try forgetting, I remember. But we say we all fine, we all fine.
What's going on, guys? Jay Hoyt back with you today. Today we got an interesting video with my brother Chris. How you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic.
So hopefully the audio is working and he sounds pristine. And we're here to talk about the Washington Capitals. Now, as you all know, they lost to Pittsburgh in, I believe, the second round of the playoffs. And Chris, what we're here to talk about is, should they make some roster moves? Should they shake up the roster? You know, what should they do with Ovechkin? Do you think they should trade Ovechkin?
No.
Why?
Dude, let me just ask you a question. I was going to think of a great sports analogy to figure this out, but I couldn't think of one, to be honest with you. So, no, just the simple answer is no. There's no way they're going to trade Alexander Ovechkin. Look, this guy, yes, he had and I'm saying this with air quotes, down year for his standards, but the dude still put up 33 goals, I believe it is, and is still a stud. There's no way they replace him on their first line, especially with the pending free agency of TJ Oshie, and then also Kuznetsov, Burakovsky, both being restricted. There's no way they let him go. No, they're not going to trade him.
Okay, I completely agree with you. And the reason I wanted to kind of bring this up in this video for you guys at home that are wondering why is because I saw an article and they were talking about, you know, should they trade Ovechkin? Should they, you know, change up their lineup? You know, what should they do? And that kind of threw the, you know, thought in my head. And the main reason I say no, and it's basically right on line of you, is, you know, first of all, where would they trade him? Because he would obviously want to go to a contender. And the teams that you think of when you want to think of contenders don't really make sense. Now, Washington is a great team, right? They won, was the President's Trophy, was it 2 years in a row or 3 years in a row?
Yeah, 2.
2 years in a row. And they brought in Shattenkirk this year with the expectation to, you know, obviously try to move past Pittsburgh this year, and they couldn't do it. But this has been their best team, I think, ever. I don't really know too much about their history, but this is a dominant team. And Ovechkin, I'm looking at his stats right now. I don't think I see a stat line under 50 points for being in the NHL. 56 points, I should say. And that was I think in a lockout year in 2012, where he played 48 games.
Yep.
And when you said down year, you were correct. 33 goals, and he had 69 points in 82 games. So although you consider that a down year, I guess, because every other year he's pretty much went point per game or higher, except for like 2 years. And you can't really replace that. I mean, he's arguably one of the best players in the world. I mean, if that's really arguably at all. And what you'd get back in a trade from him would be like not even close to the value that you'd think you'd want. That makes sense. So what would they even want in a trade? Because they have, you know, they have himself, Ovechkin. They have Backstrom, Johansson. Where's the other guys? Burakovsky, Kuznetsov, and Oshie, if they re-sign like half those guys. So that's pretty much already a top 6. But then you add in Ovechkin, and that moves, you know, 1 or 2 of those guys down, depending on, you know, lineups and, you know, who plays better together. And so they have, you know, almost like 3 really good lines. So you'd either have to get like a star first liner, not like a star, or what do I want to say? Like a really good first liner. And then after that, I wouldn't even know what, like, obviously you probably like a first round draft pick, if not like 2. Then like, other than that, they have like a full roster.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, they definitely have to get an established person, you know, back in a trade. They're not going to trade Ovechkin for, you know, draft picks and, you know, prospects, whatever. They're still in win now modes. Like we just said, coming off of back-to-back President's trophies. So there's no way they get player value for him. And like you said, Josh, especially like, and again this year, you got to look at it this way. He had 69 points, but where did his team make it? President's Trophy, to the playoffs, would have gone further if it wasn't for Sidney Crosby. So you got to think of it that way. Not everything's about individual statistics. Like you had guys like Backstrom, played huge this year. Kuznetsov is still getting better. TJ Oshie helps offset that. Burakovsky developing on the third line. Johansson stepping up on the second line. All these different guys are contributing. So, you got to look at it that way. It doesn't mean maybe personally he had a down year, but as a team, come on now. They did great this year.
Yeah, and you said individual achievements. I was looking at it, and oh my goodness, from 2001, 2002, there's at least like 5 individual awards, at least every single year, starting from there all the way till this past year, where he only had 1. So, I mean, that was the All-Star game, but, like we said, it was an off year, in quotations. But should they trade him? Probably not. But that kind of leaves the question of, do they shake up the roster? And, half of their like good guys that we've said, on this, like a second and third lines and, a second and third defensive lines that are all really good players. So do they want to move them and go a little bit of a different types of players or what? Because you have Burakovsky, Kuznetsov, and Oshie, the most notable names for forwards. That Burakovsky and Kuznetsov are both restricted free agents. Oshie is an unrestricted free agent. Then you also have to look at their defense with Alzner, Shattenkirk, Schmidt, and Orlov. The first two, Alzner and Shattenkirk, unrestricted, and Schmidt and Orlov are restricted free agents. And that's, that could be an easy like second and third line. Then you also have Niskanen, Orpik, and Carlson still under contract. So they have a very good defense. They have a great goaltender with a decent backup. And then they have a solid forward group. So it's like, what else could you possibly get on this team to make this work?
Well, Josh, so going into next year, we're going to think about the expansion draft here. So they protect Ovechkin, Backstrom, Johansson, Eller, and then you've got to protect Burakovsky and Kuznetsov along with Oshie. And I think that's 7 right there. Defensively, you got to look at Niskanen, Orpik. Actually, no, Orpik doesn't have a no-move clause. But Niskanen has a no-trade clause. You got to protect Carlson, and then they're going to protect either Alzner or Orlov. And then they've got to protect Holtby. So if you're Las Vegas, you're going to get a really good player from Washington. Whether it's a guy like Carl Alzner, who they could take off of Washington's hand, or they could take Nate Schmidt, easily a top 6 defenseman, or it depends on how the GM over there, McPhee, feels about Philip Grubauer. Grubauer is, I would say, easily a top 5 backup goaltender in this league right now. And, another one on my favorite team, Antti Raanta, you got to think, are those 2 goaltenders that Vegas is looking at that could easily both play, 40, 41 games for you, split their time and just play the hot goaltender. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think about that as well. Personally, if I'm Vegas, I'm thinking of taking Grubauer at least as a backup goaltender here. So if I'm Washington, I don't know if I'm making a trade with Vegas or anything to, leave Orlov or Schmidt protected or whatever, because I think they'd be most interested in Philip Grubauer.
Yeah, I mean, you said almost like New York with the backup goaltender situation. There's a lot of really good backups that stepped up a lot this year. And, I'm looking at the expansion draft, and you were pretty much spot on with what I had. But it's like guys like almost like Eller that the salary cap to try to re-sign some of those players too. I mean, yes, you have to think about the expansion draft players. But then, like, once you protect them, do you then go and, like, trade them afterwards anyway to try to free up some salary to re-sign, Burakovsky, Kuznetsov, and then Oshie, and then who else? And then Justin Williams, too. He's a good playoff performer. We even mentioned him, I don't think, at all. But I don't know. They have a lot of really tough decisions to make in Washington if they want to keep, their core together.
Right. No, you're definitely right. Shout out to Cap Friendly real quick, because that's the website I'm using. I don't know what you're using right now, but that's what I'm on. Yep. And if their website's right, it says that Washington has about $22 million in cap space. Okay. So theoretically, you would definitely like to re-sign Burakovsky, Kuznetsov, Oshie, definitely Schmidt and Orlov, and you're going to want to re-sign Grubauer. Probably going to want to re-sign Alzner as well. That's at least 7 guys right there. And I'll tell you right now, quite a few of those guys are going to command over $3 million a year. So you got to think about that as well. I think they prioritize Oshie, Kuznetsov, Burakovsky, and then I think they prioritize Dmitry Orlov on the back end. I think they're higher on him than maybe a lot of people outside of Washington are. I think they see him as a top pair defenseman with Matt Niskanen next year, to be honest with you. I think Carl Alzner kind of becomes the odd man out there, because I think they feel Nate Schmidt is also a top 6 guy when you look at that. So you also have Carlson and Orpik there. That's 5. And they've got a young guy in Hershey, Madison Bowie, and also Christian Juice coming up next year. Shout out to Pear Juice, Christian's dad or uncle, whatever it is. But so you got to look at it that way. What are they going to prioritize with those $22 million here in the offseason? Orpik's $5.5 million do not look good on that salary cap right now. So maybe they look to trade him, but I think they keep Eller. I think they gave up 2 second-round picks for him. So I think they keep Eller. I think if there's one piece to move, it'd be Brooks Orpik.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually looking at Alzner's salary from before, and he was only making $2.8 million. So even if they were to re-sign him, I think you were right, probably $3+ million for him. Then who else did you say? Orpik, that $5.5 million for what would be another year till 18-19 when that's, or no, well 19-20 when that's up. So then you also have to look at, I guess, next year you have to re-sign John Carlson, who's probably going to want like $5+ million to kind of match a Niskanen salary. That they're going to be struggling that year too, because then they have to re-sign, Eller and Thompson and Beagle, and depending on what they sign the rest of the guys to, if they're 1-year deals, they'll have to deal with that as well. But they got a lot of interesting decisions to make.
They definitely do have a lot of decisions to make here this year, and like you said, a few next year to make. And I think you're going to see some changes. I don't think it's going to be, as far as landscape goes, I don't think you're planting a whole new garden or anything, but you're definitely adding a couple bushes, maybe taking out a couple trees.
I like it. So I think we're going to wrap it up here, because it has been just around the time that I kind of projected it to be. But so we don't think they're going to trade Ovechkin, but kind of maintenance on their team, try to maybe move a couple of pieces and get kind of the same things back, and maybe some less salary to try to manage that a little bit. Try to re-sign their top guys and hopefully not lose too much in the expansion draft.
Yeah, definitely. My last words here, I guess, if you think Washington's going to trade Ovechkin, stop trying to get ratings and stop sounding like an idiot. They're not going to trade Alexander Ovechkin. I will eat my shirt if they do.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I guess the bet's on. If Ovechkin ends up getting traded, he's got to eat his shirt. So anyway, guys, if you guys did enjoy, hit that like button. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and subscribe for more. Also, shout out to Cap Friendly. We both love your site. It helps us out a lot, especially if we're talking about contracts and especially the expansion draft too. So anything else you gotta say, Chris?
No, I'm good, man.
All right. And guys, we'll see you next
Off the porch like mom's not home. Just a couple kids living on